Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Iowa High School playoff preview. Andrew Ward here alongside Highlight Zone producer Brian Stocking and Highlight Zone photographer Kevin Core. And guys, the playoffs are here. Playoffs.
It's the best time of the year.
Yeah, it's
best
awesome.
Best time of the year.
You got your playoff sweater on?
Absolutely. I'm ready to go.
All
We're ready
right.
for the playoffs.
I think in week one he's ready with the playoff sweater.
No, it's a little warm yet, but you never know.
Alrighty, let's get to it. Let's start in 4A. 2 teams this year. We have a condensed version of the playoffs this year, moving from 32 teams to 16 teams. So a lot less games, a lot less teams. So here we go. 2 teams in the Class 4A. Bettendorf is hosting Iowa City West. Stock, what do you see in this one?
I think Bettendorf has gone through the toughest schedule in the area. You look at their first 6 games: at Valley, home to Assumption, home to Cedar Rapids, Washington, at Pleasant Valley, home to Muscatine, at Clinton. I mean, those are 6 games that are just, and they're all in a row, all at the start of the season, and Bettendorf was breaking into quarterback JaMichael Young. JaMichael Young has thrown for nearly 1,000 yards, run for almost 700 yards, 17 total touchdowns. He is a dynamic playmaker that makes that offense go. He's also helped by Keegan Gloss, who's a real good running back, over 1,000 yards, and SUNY Lane has over 600 yards of receiving, 7 touchdowns. This team can move the ball and move it with authority, and their defense is, like their tradition, gotten tough as the season's gone on.
JaMichael Young also very, very smart with the ball, only 1 pick this season, so that's huge. Protecting the ball is huge in the playoffs. Bettendorf, I think, also benefits from being on this side of the state. All the good teams that they're going to have to see, maybe in the Unidome, Valley, Ankeny Centennial, Dowling are on the other side of the bracket. And they're looking at possibly that first game at the Dome, seeing Cedar Rapids, Washington up there wanting to get a little revenge.
Also, you look at their defense, getting back to Bettendorf's defense. Yeah. Cameron Maxwell has 4 total sacks. They've got 9 as a team. The thing, though, is they're playing Iowa City West. The Trojans are 7-2. They're going to have to travel into Bettendorf. They've got a very good playmaker, and Oliver Martin is their wide receiver. He's got almost 10 touchdowns. Plus, if the game gets into a kicking game, Lucas Carwell is 5 of 7 on field goals, and he's got 8 touchbacks. So if he can kick the ball into the end zone, Bettendorf's going to have to go 80 yards. Bettendorf's going to have to play a mistake-free game, but I think they can do it and get on to the second round.
Guys, you're forgetting about the big component here. The big component, the offensive line for Bettendorf, led by Mark Collenberger. He's going to Iowa. That offensive line has been mauling people back and forth in the run game, led by Keegan Glouse. They have done a nice job as well. Let's move to
the only one thing I want to just throw in is if they win and Cedar Rapids Prairie wins, Bettendorf has to go to Cedar Rapids Prairie because of the alphabet. Can we figure out how to bracket this better? I mean, come on. The alphabet's going to decide whether you're going to Prairie or play at Bettendorf. It's just wrong in my mind.
Well, Bettendorf did make a statement with that win at Iowa City High. Very tough place to play, coming from a guy that played at Linn-Mar and had to go there a couple times.
37-point victory by Bettendorf in that game.
Yeah.
Bettendorf is going to be a very tough out.
Speaking of City High, that is the team that will be going to Eldridge Friday night, taking on North Scott, a team that will host a game. They won their district after starting the season 1-4. What do you see from them, Kevin?
Yeah, 5-4 team you don't expect to host, but hey, they're riding hot right now. They have a big win against Pleasant Valley, who, despite their record, was probably a playoff caliber team too. That's kind of where we get to this down to 16 teams. There may have been a couple teams that should have been in, but they had 2 losses against non-playoff teams, Muscatine and Clinton. But they're coming in with a hot hand, 4-game winning streak. So you always play the hot hand.
And also, if you look at when you look at North Scott, before the season, we knew they could run the ball with Jared Russ in between the tackles. He has almost 1,000 yards. The question mark was, how are they going to replace the Brown brothers at quarterback? And they've done that with Sam Stonskis. Stonskis is quick, he's mobile, he can move the ball. There were questions about his passing. Those evaporated in Pleasant Valley when he led the Lancers down the field, touchdown with 7 seconds left. He's got 2 excellent wide receivers, Cole Rollinger, who's got 6 touchdowns, and Nate Wilkinson. Both of them have over 500 yards receiving. This North Scott team can move the ball offensively, and they've shown it the last 2 games.
Big play threats too in that receiving core. I don't know how many times we were out there shooting games with them, and we saw big time 40-yard, 50-yard, even 60, 70-yard touchdown passes. I mean, they have big playability for sure.
The offense has definitely got that ability, and what's going to carry them, though, they need their defense to step up big time. They have Drew Buffelli, a couple tackles for loss. They have Wyatt Reed, who's been in the backfield causing havoc on quarterbacks. They need to step up, and the back four need to step up too.
But in this game, the line's going to be the major thing because they're playing City High, and City High likes to run the football. They've got Nate Whalen, who's thrown for almost 1,200 yards, but he's run for almost 600. He's a dual threat, one of those dual threat quarterbacks. He's got 10 touchdowns running, and Bryce France has almost 700 yards, 13 touchdowns. They can really move the ball on the ground, and they've got a very good defense. 9 sacks by Brock Hunter, and as a team, they've got 9 sacks. He has 3 of them. And Vance Dillon is a major component of their kickoff game. He's run 2 back for touchdowns.
Yeah, I like this matchup though for North Scott because City High just doesn't blow anybody out. I mean, they're solid defensively, and they pound you in the ground game on the run. So
they don't have to look far for a blueprint on how to beat them because Bettendorf did that pretty handily.
Exactly. There you go.
City High though has scored in their last 5 games. 4 times they've gone over 36 points or more, so they can move the ball. The only team to stop them was Bettendorf in that streak.
There we go. All right. Speaking of hot teams, Assumption. Going into over to 3A here, Assumption has rattled off 6 straight wins after starting their season 1-2. Now they did play Bettendorf, and Bettendorf beat them up pretty good. They also lost to a very good West Delaware team. So you look at those 2 things, but I saw them the other day or Friday night at Marion, and they looked about as good as any team in Class 3A, I think.
Yeah, they are a very good football team. The question is they're running into a buzzsaw with Cedar Rapids Xavier because Xavier's undefeated. But let's start first with talking about Assumption. Chase Levy came in game 2 when the starting quarterback got knocked out, and Levy has been sensational since. Over 800 yards passing, 12 touchdowns passing, almost 1,000 yards rushing, 15 touchdowns rushing. They've got a 2-headed monster in that backfield. It's either Levy or Justice Burke. Burke has almost 1,200 yards. He had a huge game against Central DeWitt, 13 touchdowns, and Ryan Wohlers over 400 yards receiving, 4 touchdowns. He's their big play threat at receiver. But Levy and Burke are going to be key for Assumption to go on.
Yeah, their running game is definitely huge. I mean, both those 2 20-plus touchdowns this year. They're not going to beat you through the air, but they can beat you on the ground. And like you mentioned with Bettendorf, the big offensive line to push people around.
The game is going to be decided by defense. You look at both teams' defense. Pete Lubenthal of Assumption has 5 of the team's 12 sacks. He's got 13 tackles for a loss. Assumption has forced 18 turnovers. But you look at the Saints of Xavier, 19 turnovers, 11 interceptions. So Assumption cannot fall behind because if they fall behind, the ball hawkers in the Xavier defense will go after them. In the last 6 games, Xavier's allowed 8 points or less in all 6, 2 of those by shutouts. And their quarterback, Bryce Schultz, 14 touchdowns passing, 10 rushing. He's also made an interception. Malachi Wilson has over 1,400 rushing, 15 touchdowns. The team has 30 touchdowns rushing. Whoever gets ahead will win this game because the other team will not be able to come back because they don't throw the ball very well at either team, and the defenses for both teams are shut down. This could be a very low-scoring but very intense football game.
And looking ahead in the bracket, if Assumption is able to get past Xavier, they might have a rematch with West Delaware, which I think they match up very well. Or Waverly Shell Rock, I think they match up even better. So this one win could push them all the way to the Unidome.
And they will earn it because Malachi Wilson has 10 touchbacks. He's the kickoff specialist for Xavier. So Assumption's going to have to travel 80 yards, but they are a very good team with the football. They don't make many mistakes when they have the ball.
When you look at this side of the bracket, you almost see like all these favorites, powerhouses in Class 3A. You got Xavier, Assumption, Pella is on that side as well. And West Delaware has been a perennial power as well in Class 3A. So that's a very, very tough side of the bracket.
It's kind of like the opposite of Bettendorf, we were talking about. They were lucky they're on the side of the state. Assumption is not lucky they're on the side of the state.
Absolutely. All right, let's move to Class 1A now. We don't have any area teams in Class 2A this year.
That's good because Mount Vernon put 720 yards last night on Williamsburg, who you saw in a spotlight game. 720 yards, that's the 4th best in the state in history.
And Williamsburg's not a bad team here. They're in the playoffs this year, and that's a playoff team getting beat up there. All right, Bellevue, 9-0 this season. They've been so impressive all year long. Their offense was legit. What do you guys see with Bellevue entering this one?
Peter Gilbert.
Yeah.
That's all you have to say. He's top 5 in the state in rushing, 20-plus touchdowns. He's the top running back in our area. I mean, he's just been running over teams, and you got to stop him if you want a shot to beat this Bellevue team that I think shocked a lot of people. I don't think anybody was expecting 9-0 out of Bellevue.
No, they were a good team, but no one expected this. And Peter Kilberg, unbelievable, over 25 touchdowns, over 1,800 yards rushing, and he had the first game of the season, 5-touchdown game. And then, all right, we're going to stop Peter Kilberg because if you stop him, you stop the comments. Then they go, well, Cade Doherty can throw the ball. Cade Doherty, 18 touchdowns rushing. 18 touchdowns passing, 3 rushing touchdowns. He also is a ball hawk on the defense with 5 interceptions.
Yeah.
And he throws to Trey Doherty, who has 6 touchdowns and over almost 400 yards receiving. This Bellevue team is scary good, and if they win in the first round, and they would get Clayton Ridge, and that game was a doozy of a battle earlier this season. Bellevue could get all the way not only to the semis, they could play in the state final.
It's going to be tough for them. I mean, because if you look at their side of the bracket as well, you got 3 9-0 teams, and you have Iowa City Regina.
But we talk about defense. But we talk about defense in the playoffs. And Mason Lyons has 10 sacks, 9 solos. He's got 36. The team for total has 36 sacks, 17 other tackles for losses. They are stacked on defense.
Yeah.
They've played some games the past 3 games. 2 of them were shootouts. But I think their defense is legit and can get them all the way.
Just a couple other names on the defense: Hunter Clausen and Zach Bullock. They're also tallying the sacks in that backfield.
Yeah, he's got 7.5 Clausen,
Yeah.
15 interceptions as the team. They play South Winneshiek in the first round. South Winds won 6 in a row. Ronnie Schwartzoff is their go-to, almost 2,000 yards rushing, 22 touchdowns. And they also have a man named Manning Kubasek. Kubasek has 7 sacks, 24 tackles for losses. I said so you want to have
Kubasek. There you
Yes.
go. There, perfect. We got one other team in Class 1A, West Branch. They're visiting Iowa City Regina. Iowa City Regina is a buzzsaw of a program. I don't know exactly how many they've won in a row.
Too many.
Too many to count, yeah. But what does West Branch have to do to pull off probably the upset of the century almost?
Well, I think first thing last night, West Branch fans saw that they were in the playoffs. And they're like, yay, we're in the playoffs. And then this morning they saw they're playing Regina. They're like, oh,
We're
man.
in the playoffs.
Well, Regina has been West Branch's kryptonite for years
Yeah.
and years and years. For West Branch to have any chance of this game is going to come down to Luke Lennick. Not only the best running back in West Branch history, one of the best in the state, 15th all-time in rushing, 10th all-time in touchdowns. Problem is, in overtime against Clayton Ridge last night, he got hurt. So depending on how good he is to go, may go West Branch's future.
And that's West Branch's problem this season has been injuries. They had to insert Cooper Kabbalah, who's their wide receiver. They had to turn him over and to quarterback because they had run out of quarterbacks. They've been banged up all season, and this would just be another injury on the list. Lennox, almost 1,700 yards rushing, 29 touchdowns. Now, if there is a bright side for the Bears, I know they love playing the Little Rose Bowl, but they're 3-1 on the road this season, so they do play well off campus. Regina, though, oh my goodness. 8 wins this season. They've won their last 8 games. They lost to Xavier in the opener.
A 3A team. A pretty good 3A team.
Yeah, one of the better.
The last 3 games, Regina's won them all by 35 points or more. Michael Conlon has 16 total touchdowns. He's the quarterback. Jacob Phillips has 9 touchdowns running. They've got some ball hawks in the secondary. We talk about defense. Brady Bigley has 4 interceptions. 4 interceptions, 2 pick sixes. Trey Rogers has 4 interceptions. Here's the thing, though. If it gets to a field goal game, the Eagles need a kicker. They're 0 for 4 in field goals. So if it comes down to them needing a field goal, it's going to be nervous time for them. But they do have Sam Stein, who's their punter. He's got an average of 41 yards a punt, 2 touchbacks. So the Bears are going to have to ball control, but that might help them if they're banged up. They can control the ball, move the ball with good offensive line first downs. They might be able to keep it in a game and put Regina in a situation they're not used to, playing a tight game.
There you go, West Branch. That's your key to victory from Brian Stocking. Make Regina kick the football.
I actually got to see the Regals play against Wilton, and they actually run two dual quarterbacks. They'll switch every drive. They'll bring another quarterback in. You usually think, man, why do this? Well, because they're both really, really good.
unlike some teams where the old saying is if you've got two quarterbacks, you really have none, yes.
Yeah, they have two quarterbacks. And speaking of Wilton, state of Iowa, where's Wilton on this bracket? They were 7-2. BCR Moore had them ranked as the 10th best team in the state, and they're at home.
Well, there's been a lot of talk about going from 32 to 16, and it's a scarcity. There's a scarcity of spots, and there's not really much room. I mean, if you look at the state of Iowa, they're sort of hamstrung. You move forward, you got week 0 this year. Week 0 would have been August 12th. Mm-hmm. Week 1 would have been August 19th, which is 4 days before they can start school in the state of Iowa. Plus, it's State Fair weekend, and we know that Governor Branstad loves the State Fair, so that's not going to happen. Go back a week. Well, first of all, you go back to Thanksgiving. The Iowa high schools don't like doing anything over the holidays, especially Christmas and Thanksgiving. So you'd be trying to get Friday and Saturday at the Unidome. Problem. UNI is, if they're in the playoffs, the NCAA takes custody of the game site at least 24 hours in advance. So you have to be having to play either before or way after UNI plays their playoff games. That's not going to happen. All right, we'll play at Kinnick or Jack Trice. Only problem is they're both outdoors, which is now a problem because we all love outdoor football.
It's meant to be
the
played.
problem, though, is you got fans who will go, it's 5 degrees or 20 degrees or there's snow on the ground, we're not going anywhere. And then Iowa's at home on Saturday. Cyclones are at Jack Trice on Saturday. So what's left? Drake Stadium. I mean, I'm not dogging Drake, but I just don't see where they can move to. I mean, and then if you go to 24. Then you're going to have teams complain, well, the state's protecting this team because we have to play a first-round game and they don't. Then they'd have to go back to 32, and then we'll be back to 1-8 teams getting in.
Yeah.
I mean, I just don't see how the IHSA how Iowa's going to win on this because, scarcity of choices. And then, like last night, Clayton Ridge, West Branch game, Wilton, Sigourney Kenyatta. Those games were win and you go in, lose and you're sweating. Yeah. I mean, that's what weeks 9 should be about, not whether do we get a home game or do we have to go on the road, like in the past years.
It's tough, though, that when you're punishing a team that lost to Regina, whose only loss was to Xavier, and Sigourney Kenyatta, whose only loss was to Regina.
Well, but an eight-player Lone Tree was 8-1, and I'm old enough to remember there were some teams in Iowa that went 9-0 and didn't make the playoffs back in the old days.
Also, this scenario also eliminates the teams that make it that are like 1-8. You don't
which we had last year.
You don't want that in the playoffs either.
Or
that's
2-7.
That's like a 5-7 team making it to a bowl game in college. I mean, you don't want teams that are 1-8 making it in the playoffs.
For some schools that rarely get in the playoffs, it was a treat for them to get in.
That's true.
The only problem, though, is like last year. I know that the first round attendance at Bettendorf was not very good because of the fact that a lot of people said, we've got a set amount of money. We want to go to a playoff game, but we're going to go to a game that's a second round because we're probably going to win the first round. I mean, it's, in economics, you talk about scarcity of resources, scarcity of money, scarcity of choices. That's one of them.
Somewhere in the middle here is a perfect system. I mean, not only Wilton, I hate seeing Muscatine and Alfonso Soko sitting at home and Johnny Sullivan and Clinton sitting at home.
Absolutely.
They both did enough this year to earn a playoff spot, and they're not.
Yeah, I mean, it's you look in football, there's a lot of that. I mean, one year Iowa State went 8-3 with Dexter Money Green. They didn't get into a bowl game. The Dirty 30 of Iowa State didn't go to a bowl. Iowa had several years where they didn't go to a bowl because Michigan went 32-1 for 3 years, never saw a bowl game because of the way it was then. So, I mean, I know it's sad for Clinton, for Wilton, for Muscatine, a lot of Wapello, Logan Belzer had a great season. It's just there's no. I don't think there is a perfect system.
I want more teams. New London. I want New London.
All righty, guys. That's going to do it for us. For Brian Stocking, Kevin Core, I'm Andrew Ward. Playoffs start Friday night.